Hey guys, Peshev from DevWorks here, and this is Mara. Today's topic is what do you do when you share a work problem with your boss, or a set of problems, or something that's more generically a problem, and they do agree with you 100%, right? It doesn't make sense. You share a problem and the problem is out there and your boss agrees with you, and then you're like, well, why? How come this is not fixed yet? So the reason I want to tackle this topic is, there's the hiring process is very complicated, and building the right company culture is also extremely complicated as well. Most organizations do try to define some sort of protocols, guidelines, regulations, the company pillars that are important to the team, and so on and so on. Most people are generally not highly motivated to work in a team by definition. So motivation is something that you can either have it or not have it, or be somewhere in the middle, and the middle may be a very broad, vast area, an abyss even, I would say. So it's kind of a combination between interesting job and great colleagues, and some great leadership that motivates you, the right pace of deadlines that would keep you exploring things that are of interest to you, and so on and so on. But at some extent, this becomes developing every single individual is a very expensive effort. So people should meet somewhere in the middle. To some extent, like even for someone who's mid-level skilled, be it a technician, manager, designer, so forth, being able to assign someone as a mentor, as a coach, as a leader, maybe 5 times or even more expensive than retaining that particular person, right? Because you need someone who's like 5 times more experienced than you, someone with interpersonal skills, with soft skills, communication skills, psychology background, leadership training, Six Sigma probably, and so on. So you can see why most organizations can't do that, because it's just completely not sustainable. So what they try to do is they hire a manager, some low-level manager working with a mid-level or senior manager, who's kind of in charge of the entire team of several people. Could be 3, could be 15 or 20 even. And that's kind of how it works. So you usually have access to that leadership, but you need some sort of self-driven approach if you want to persist and succeed, and so on. So sometimes when you work in an organization, you're kind of the proactive type, not procreative. That's weird in the workplace. So if you're working in that sort of organization, you want to be in charge of things. You want to be, you come up with ideas, you want to overcome challenges and obstacles, and so on. What happens though is you explain the problem and say, hey, that's ABC, but we are using that too. That's really shitty, and it's wasting 3 times, taking 3 times longer to complete a basic task. Or this is something that doesn't support those things, but the other 2 does, and so on. And then your manager or your boss says, yeah, I know that. It's really a problem. And you're kind of stuck. You've shared a problem, and not only nothing happens, but they don't even disagree with you. They don't even give you kind of a point of why does that happen in the first place. And there are a lot of reasons for that to be happening, right? When we work with new people in our marketing or business development department, or senior project managers, when we are kind of discussing that during interviews or during the trial phase, many of them come up with some great ideas that we've been through 7 times or 10 times. They didn't work, and they seem like common sense at first, except that they don't really work in our particular case. And sometimes there are very valid reasons to do something, but it's just too expensive. The onboarding will take months, or like they do have a pros and cons list, so we're going to lose on some specific features. And that's kind of a tricky moment, right? So ideally, if you fall into that sort of situation, you need to figure out what the actual problem is, right? You shouldn't lose your motivation. You have to discuss a specific problem with your manager and say, okay, so let's say we do that. What's going to happen? Or is there any reason why this is not happening, right? Or what can I do in order to prevent, those concerns or so on from actually happening, right? Those kind of things are actually extremely important in order for you to get the context. And obviously, great leaders, great managers, and so on, they would try to explain that, but it's not always possible, or it's too complicated, or sometimes there's some proprietary information or something else that also takes place. But anyway, just try to be first off proactive, try to be motivated, try to be self-driven when discussing that sort of approaches and when trying to understand the problem. The second thing is, it also depends on who's going to solve that problem, right? For example, our new marketing hire, during a marketing meeting a month ago, she said, hey, we should really get into producing tutorials and educational videos from our Devrix account and so on and so on. And I was like, that's a great idea. Who's going to do that? She was like, well, someone can probably handle that. And I was like, yeah, but we don't have a video producer and so on and so on. And I asked her to, join and start preparing videos, but she was hesitant because she doesn't have experience and she doesn't feel like, that's something that she can undertake. So that's fine. That's completely okay. But when you suggest an idea, there's gotta be a way to, kind of reduce the number of steps until reaching to a conclusion or to a decision. So you should either kind of volunteer to do that yourself in order to step up in the organization and undertake a specific sort of activity, or you should try to figure out, is there anyone on your team that can potentially help with that, or try to look for example, for freelancers, or suggest agencies or something else so that it can bring you closer. Because a lot of times there are kind of 15 to 20 steps to solve a problem. But at the same time, most people do say, well, yeah, let's do X. And they can probably do at least 10 steps ahead in order to give you some advantage, right? In order to have something to review, say yes, no, and move forward. Like, for example, one of our business assistants, we were discussing, company culture again and so on. She said, well, okay, I found that too. That's kind of measuring mood. It's sending kind of a daily email and just asks people, how do you feel, ranked from, terrible to excellent, right? And instead of just asking us, hey, should we implement it? Should we do it? Should we this and that? She just said, I signed up for this account. I invited you. You're going to receive those emails. In a week from now, I'm going to share the results from you, right? So it's a problem. We know it's a problem. We don't have the resources to do that. There are just far too many things, but someone can potentially find a workaround, at least for the time being. For videos, for example, even if you can't record videos yourself and so on, I found Lumen 5 or there was Content Samurai, I think, another tool for kind of video building based on content that you can use at least to create some sort of videos. Or you can use a script and again kind of show up for just 5 seconds and then show slides onward, right? There are a lot of different activities that could be done. But again, the fact that you share a problem and your boss agrees with you, which is the main point of the video, doesn't mean that your boss is stupid or that they are unaware and don't care about the problem. Most often they're not. There's another reason that leads to actually having that problem in the first place. Or it's clear that it would take time that the team doesn't have right now. It's not a high priority, but if someone steps in, they can potentially help solving the problem. So if you're that person, if you're proactive, especially if you're new in the organization, spend the time, take the initiative, just work hard in order to prove yourself, undertake something, and become a valuable member in that team. The first few months in an organization are crucial. People have to like each other, both, the company liking the employee and the other way around. So finding some sort of a bond, finding some sort of a kind of mutually grouped exercise in order to conduct is a great way to make that happen and to make the next step until your kind of evolutionary career progress towards senior position or management or something else over the next 2 years.